More from ACC Media Day. Dabo Sweeney talks about Clemson's culture, Cade Klubnik's growth, and Tom Allen's leadership. We'll talk about it all right here on Locked on Clemson.
You are Locked on Clemson, your daily podcast on the Clemson Tigers. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Tiger fans? Morgan Thomas here, Clemson fan, Clemson grad, host and producer of Locked on Clemson, part-time host and producer over at 105.5 FM The Roar. And thank you so much for making Locked on Clemson your first listen every day. We're part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. And if you're new to the show, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And if you're an everydayer, well, you already know how we do it here on Locked on. Exclusive Clemson content Monday through Friday every single week. And in between episodes, don't forget to follow me over on X at The Morgan T Show. We talk about all things Clemson every single weekday here on Locked On. Today's episode is the same of that. Before we get into it, though, we'll tell you that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins over at FanDuel. Dabo Swinney came out in the ACC Media Days and in his conference talking on ACC Network and you know things that we've heard so far. A lot of what you've heard over the years with Dabo. It's not a lot of newness, not anything really shocking, not anything out of the ordinary. But to be honest with you, this kind of consistency and being focused on the big picture and your why and your values and having values that you do not let the public eye or the national media or whatever is hot, popular now change your values and your belief system, it kind of turns out that you're a little bit boring. But you know what I think this world needs a little more of? The boringness. You know, we need more men in leadership positions who hold true to their values, who don't just flake at the first sign of change or, you know, flip-flop whenever someone tells them something that they don't appreciate or tells them to change, and looks back and takes a moment and says, hey, what is my why? What is my ultimate goal? What do I want to do? And how do I want to be remembered? And what are my ultimate goals in life? And I think Dabo Swinney does a very good job at that. Now, a lot of times people will say, this is kind of phony. It's unbelievable. You know, it's kind of fake sounding. He keeps saying the same things. But again, it goes back to, it's because the outside looking in, those people, they don't really understand what it means to stay true to your values and be consistent over time. More often than not, people you run into, do they keep doing the same thing over and over and over? Do they keep focused on their values? Do they keep their same belief system? No, a lot of times people are just all over the place. You might meet somebody 1 year and then 5 years later, they're completely different. You know, Dabo Sweeney, we've had him for many years now, over a decade, and he still stays true to his ultimate goals. Now, Clemson's secret sauce, according to Dabo, is not the playbook. You know, it can't be the playbook because the playbook changes a lot and it changes every game. And, you know, what works 1 year versus 5 years down the road may not work as well. It can't be high school recruiting because you never know what a 17-year-old young man is or in family are going to do. You can't hinge everything on that. I've always heard Dabo say, you know, it's not about the players we lost, it's about the players we got, you know, and there have been years where I've gone to these recruiting wrap-ups and they have lost some pretty highly ranked guys. But Dabo's always focused on, hey, you know what? We'd rather have the guys who want to be here versus the guys who didn't want to be here. Don't chase the portal guys either. When all these things came on with the transfer portal and Dabo was kind of against it, he claims he wasn't against it, but he definitely wasn't full jumping into the deep end of the pool like a lot of these teams were. And looking back, it really, while it may have been slow and boring, it really wasn't a bad idea to kind of take a step back, see how everything settles in. Did it cost him a year or one here or there or depth at a position here or there? Maybe, probably, but he has slowly started to adapt different practices, but still staying true to his why and his ultimate goals and the reason for why he's a head coach. One of the biggest things that I believe, does different, and he believes this as well, is it's all focused on retention. When I first took over this job, a lot of people would ask me when they had me on as a guest, why doesn't Dabo use the portal? Well, or why doesn't Dabo pay players? Well, the thing is, he does pay players. He does do what a lot of the big elite programs do. If you didn't do what everyone else is doing, what your competition is doing, at least match them in some way, then you are definitely falling behind. But Dabo is always focused on not paying for acquisition as much as paying for retention. Now, it may have originally started at 100% retention, and it's kind of slowly tweaked it into some acquisition. But the reason why Dabo did that, and I believe this, is because it's the devil you know versus the devil you don't know. These players, you've committed to these players, they've committed to you, they're wearing your jersey, and you've got guys in the portal, they've never even once, maybe not even visited your campus. How committed are they to even getting a degree? How committed are they to your process? How committed are they to your values? They didn't even really want to entertain you when you were a recruit. And now they need a position, and you may need one too. But Dabo always focused on retention first. And I feel like that's why Clemson has been one of the teams that consistently keeps the best players on their team, and also doesn't have to, and it helps them recruiting, and it helps them coaching. Because when you think about it, you're a coach, you start to get used to someone, you can really understand all the different layers that is a human being. And you can really relate to them on many different levels and really find out. It may take you more than 1 year to figure out exactly what motivates them, exactly what their main goals are. Maybe that player who's not 21 yet doesn't even know those things, right? So Dabo's committed to retention. He's committed to development. And it's been anti what national media has said, and even fans have said. Hey, fans have said, get rid of this player. He stinks. He can't play. His stats are terrible. Other people have said, oh, just replace everybody with transfer portal player guys. And we've seen other teams do that. Some have had a lot of success. Some, I would even say a higher percentage, have struggled to keep consistency, have struggled to develop those players, have struggled to get them all on the same page, have had highs of high seasons and low of low seasons. Clemson, on the other hand, has been relatively consistent and have been growing as we've seen college football has been growing and evolving too. Dabo also emphasized graduation rate, which he's going to keep doing, which I think it sets him apart from all the other teams. How many other head coaches do you feel like get on top of a hill and not only talk about retention of players, but graduation of those players? The highest graduation rate in the country, fewest players leaving in the country. He also talked about having 25 former players on staff. You go back and look, they've got Ben Boulware, now they have Taj Boyd, but I was even scrolling through the whole list of players. Nolan Turner's there, and you got Richard Yeargin, you've got, Daquan Bowers, you've got DeAndre McDaniel, these guys who have been with the staff, and you would even count Jeff Davis and those guys, the former players on this team who it goes back to not only retention, but then bringing them back to be part of the culture that you're continuing to build. And that's why Clemson feels so much like a family. And also, he mentioned about being extremely transparent with recruiting. You know, it may not be that thing that the 5-star of 5 stars that wants all the money really wants to talk about or really cares about. But Dabo's going to lay it out and say exactly what matters to him, what the structure is about, what the accountability is about, what the education level expectations are. While there's other schools, and you know this, that they don't care what you do on the education side. As far as accountability, a lot of them just say, hey, play good in the game. And all the other accountability stuff, we don't really care as long as you win games for us. And the continuity that Dabo has been able to do will, I believe, help him get off the ground faster. You know, if you will, help him have better performance to take off on a shorter runway. He doesn't need 7 or 8 weeks to kind of build this up. We're hearing this from the LSU standpoint as well. They're kind of concerned because they have 20 if you count the true freshmen, 20 in the top in the first and second string in their rotation. 20 players that were not on the team last season. That's almost half of your top 2 first and second string, your rotation, that you don't even know anything about. Now you're hoping that they do well, whereas Clemson knows those guys, you know, and they know they're good, they know they're bad, they know their struggles, and it helps you find out exactly what you have and better evaluate, better prepare, and hopefully be ready earlier on in the season as week 1, instead of hoping 3 or 4 weeks, oh, that's when they'll get it all together. That's when they'll start working all together. If LSU loses and Clemson wins in week 1, I guarantee you will hear it. That's because you will hear Clemson has continuity and LSU does not yet. And the LSU fans will say, we're just going to be waiting a couple of weeks, then we'll get it all together. Then we'll be the best team of the best team if they lose. I'm telling you, that's what we can already expect going into week 1 or after week 1. Clemson's culture, obviously not just a paw, not just a slogan, not just saying family for the sake of saying family, but that is truly one of their ultimate goals and their reasons for being under Dabo Swinney. And it's pretty awesome to see how they've built it up over all these years following Coach Swinney. All right, next up, we're going to talk about one of those guys that is a part of the team, and that is Cade Klubnik and how big of a leap he has made year over year. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little bit more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. Now, this past weekend, my friend was watching the Braves. We were just chilling out, and he decided to throw in a same-game parlay. Put it on the Braves, put it on an extra base hit from Riley, a few strikeouts from the starting pitcher, and in 30 seconds, he built it all together and put it in. The odds popped up right away. He knew exactly what he could expect, and suddenly he was even more interested as we were just hanging out. So when it cashed in too, and he was able to get that payout, it was just a few seconds. It was back into his account so he could move on to something else. It's pretty cool to see. If you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. Now, Dabo also came out at the ACC Media Days and talked about Cade Klubnik. And he really re-emphasized about the fact that he is ready to make a big leap in 2025. We mentioned this weeks now that Cade, this is his year, you know, of all the players. He's got the wide receivers. He's got an offensive line that's been together. It's not completely rebuilt. None of those position players around him have been injured or been out. He should have the best players around him that Clemson has had in years. And he should be able to take it to the next level, to the ultimate level that we expect of him for his final season as a Clemson Tiger quarterback. Now, you remember when Cade came in earlier as a true freshman, he was kind of a stick. Reminded me of Deshaun Watson in a lot of ways. A big-time 5-star guy, but looked like he'd never had a hamburger. He arrived at 175, and what we're hearing is he's 207 pounds with better decision-making, better leadership ability, and being able to make decisions on the fly instead of panicking. We've seen it get better and better. 2024 was kind of a turning point with some of those dumb, boneheaded plays. He walked away from those, and I'm not just hyping him up at all because he has been beat up by me for sure. I've said all the things that he's done wrong. I've done the passing charts and complained about his accuracy or his decision making in specific situations. But this is the development that we are seeing. This is the kind of stuff that we're talking about with Dabo Swinney and why he cares so much about his goals and seeing these players through, paying them to stay on the team, keeping them together as much as possible, and watching them through and helping them develop. The staff believes in Cade Klubnik. We're hearing that the locker room has a big-time belief in Cade Klubnik, and it's showing up in spring practice, and it's now showing up in the fall as the team gets ready to start fall practice. I looked at an email that came out recently, and they're going to be, looks like going to be next week doing some media day coverage, going to be allowing us into the practice. I'm going to try to go with Mickey Plyler and see if we can get in and watch some of the practices and give you some of the insider information on that too. But Dabo Sweeney mentioned about Cade Klubnik and about how he has grown so much. We talked about him being the puppy that you loved. He was cute and cuddly. You wanted him. You play with him, but then he'd pee on the rug, or he would chew half the couch up. Right? Cade has walked away from that. I mean, he took a lot of sacks. He had a lot of turnovers his first year, but he's had fewer sacks. He's had fewer turnovers. He's had even fewer tackles for loss. He's had a better use of his legs as well. I all feel like that Cade's mindset has clicked. And maybe it was that Pittsburgh game where the old Cade would have fumbled the ball or slid early on before he crossed the first down marker. Remember that? Or would have ran out of bounds. But the new Cade or the current Cade turned it upfield. And I felt like just that confidence, just something clicked for him. Like, hey, wait a minute. I'm actually this good. I actually have talent that can help myself win games. Now, he still makes some bad decisions. The South Carolina game was one that was extremely frustrating to watch, where he started driving the team back down the field, and instead of making the best play possible, he decided to bail out of a package and out of a scheme, a play, and do the check down to Maffa that was nowhere near him, and it was an interception. So Cade still has a few things here and there that frustrate you, but he overall has made a lot of gains in between the years in the decision making, and he's made the physical gains as well. We watched a video on YouTube that Clemson football came out with, my wife and I, and that was the first thing she said. She was like, "Is that Cade Klubnik?" And I said, "Yeah, babe. Why? I mean, Cade's obviously like very recognizable guy. She said, no, I mean, Cade looks like he's been in the weight room much more than we're used to, than she expected. And I said, yeah, he kind of does look bulkier, you know? And it's obviously true now. I mean, the guy's almost 30 pounds heavier than or actually is 32 pounds heavier than when we originally saw him as a true freshman. I'm curious to see how that's going to work out as far as durability, as far as his running ability. Having that kind of base around him will allow him to finish plays with his legs, will allow him to hopefully, have a little bit more upper body strength to make those more accurate throws, to make those deep throws, and his lower body strength to kind of plant and really get himself set. I was walking the dog yesterday in the neighborhood, and one big time Clemson fan who lives down the street, her name's Bunny, and she's a sweet lady. She said, Morgan, I'm really excited for this season, but the one thing about Cade is if he's calm, cool, and collect with his feet, then he's going to destroy any team on the other side of the field. She's like, I don't even care. He's going to win every single game. But when he starts getting happy feet and dancing around a little too much, that's when she worries about it. And I believe that that's still a concern with the decision-making, with the situational awareness, with the relaxed, the unrelaxed, I guess you could say, or anxious footwork that he can get at certain times. But what have we seen from Cade? What do we know is true? We know that he's consistently got better year in and year out, and that this has to be his year where he becomes that ultimate leader of the team and gets them over the hump. I feel like Cade can do it. He has the pieces around him to do it. Can he make that final leap to show up against the best teams that are on the schedule? Because that's the biggest gripe that I see in the comments from the opposing fan bases is, well, Cade lost all 3 SEC games. And that is true. They were against the number 1 team at the time, the number 5 team at the time, and the number 15 team at the time. But that doesn't matter, because he lost those games. And he also lost the Louisville game. Arguably the most difficult games on his schedule, he lost all those games. Was it all his fault? No. But as the true leader of the team, he has to be able to pivot from that, take responsibility for that, and become a new anchor for the team as a leader to be able to make sure that they finish these games. They could have beat South Carolina. They weren't going to beat Georgia. They weren't going to beat LSU or Louisville, but that was really more on the defense's problem. They could have beat South Carolina, but that was a defense problem too. And ultimately, at the end, his problem for not finishing the game at the very end. And then Texas, I felt like he had the best of the first round games. I felt like Clemson put the best fight up against any of those first round games. So Cade has not been an instant success like Trevor Lawrence was, which, maybe we'll never see that again at Clemson. But he's been in the crock pot over time, and he's ready to serve up a big-time season in 2025. If he can keep his legs underneath him and protect the football, Clemson will be able to control the tempo against all of their opponents and be able to allow Tom Allen's defense to flourish as well. Talking about Tom Allen's defense, we'll finish it up with some discussion on what Dabo Sweeney had to say about Tom Allen. Clemson didn't just hire anybody at defensive coordinator. They did do that last time. And I hyped up Wes Goodwin as much as I could. But it was very shocking that a top tier program would go in and get basically an analyst, basically somebody who, not basically, yes, somebody who had never actually coached full time, even a position. Very weird for Dabo to do that. He believed in it. He went with it. And, mixed bag. The first 2 seasons weren't necessarily bad, but they got progressively worse. And then his last season dropped off big time. But Clemson now has a leader on defense that kind of fits the same mold or same thought process that I have with Matt Luke. And that is that he brought in a guy who fits the program's core values, has that faith background, has that family background, but also was a head coach himself. And so all of that helps Tom Allen be able to do more quickly, get buy-in immediately, and allow Dabo Swinney to be the head coach and not have to babysit the defensive coordinator. We love, a fan base as a whole loves the addition of Tom Allen. It was a great pickup. We were all cheering for it. But the LSU game is going to be that very first big time test, and it is not an easy one. Both teams are still struggling for the past couple of seasons to actually win the first game of the season. And so both teams have a lot riding on this. Dabo also has a lot of expectations for how Tom Allen will be able to turn this defense around and get it back up into a top 10, top 15 defense away from the top 50 or 50th ranked defense that it has been or that it was last season. Dabo got the right leader for the defense for sure. He said Tom Allen has been fitting the culture of family, the culture of accountability, and been really focused on the purpose of the team and the goals of the team. The track record, again, is there, and I hope that Dabo continues this style of hiring, continues to hire guys that allow him to be who he needs to be as a head coach. No learning on the job, no babysitting, no trying to hold people's hand and do a little bit of both, but getting guys in there that you can trust to take it and run with it. That's going to help you make a huge impact this season and going forward. And I think Tom Allen's going to stay with Clemson for quite some time. But to me, alignment, accountability, and immediate impact is all going to be on display for Clemson in 2025. A lot of these opposing fans out there that are quoting what happened last year, I do believe forget that Clemson has a brand new defensive coordinator. They forget that they have made some changes on defense, and they forget that Clemson has brought in transfer portal player guys that can impact them and supplement just in the specific areas where they were lacking in. Don't confuse that comment with what I said in segment 1 with retention and continuity. I'm saying supplement in areas of need. I'm not saying do the FSU, LSU standpoint of bring in 18 new guys that are going to be in your rotation for sure, and then have this hopes and dreams that they're going to immediately respond and work all well together, just like they've been playing for 15 years in travel ball. No, it's not going to happen. I don't believe it's going to happen. They believe it's going to happen, but I don't believe it's going to happen. There's no warm-up time for this, though, with Clemson. LSU is going to stress them out with their communication, stress them out with their spacing and their zone integrity and their blitz schemes. Clemson is not going to get a bunch of easy do-overs or mulligans or freebies with the LSU team. They're going to come ready to play and ready to win the game. LSU has a lot of firepower. We know that. We've researched it. Their weaknesses, in my opinion, are more in experience and actual production, and less in talent. LSU is eat up with talent. Their transfer portal players, guys, are very talented as well. But playing together and showing it on paper and showing it on in real life are completely different things. Clemson did the right things in the offseason. We are now, it looks like a little bit under 40 days left for Hill Watch for Clemson LSU, the first game of the season. I know you're excited about it. This is really, when you look at it, next week is the end of July, is the last week of July. And we get rolling with August. And that's when camp gets full blast, and we get a lot of new discussion about that. And I'm excited for it. I know you are as well. Hey, thank you so much for making Locked On Clemson your first listen of the day. For your second listen, check out the Portal Show. Brian Smith has the latest rumors, portal entries, and signings. Be the most informed fan on the rapid changes to the college football landscape. Find the Portal on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. And as always, Tiger fans, thank you again. We'll see you next week. And as always, we'll see you at the top of the hill.